What's at stake? We know what's at stake for the Progressive Conservatives, but what's at stake for the Wild Rose in this session? I mean, last week we talked on the show about the lead up to the various party conventions. Mariam, you were on your way down there. I got the impression that Danielle Smith had a much tougher AGM than Premier Prentice. So what's at stake for the Wild Rose in this session?
Everything.
They need to try to prove that they are capable of advancing, ideas forward that are different from what the PCs can offer, and they need to prove again that they can be a government in waiting. There was a time when I think that when people looked at the Wild Rose Party and Danielle Smith, they saw, I think that could happen, and I think unfortunately for the party after this weekend's AGM, a lot of people have lost any thought of that.
Why is that happening?
Well, it's a threefold thing. And in a very important way, the party is a victim of its own success. They successfully brought down a premier. They successfully got the new premier to adopt many of their policy platforms. So once they've done that, I mean, they really have cannibalized a lot of their own basis of support. I mean, they did too well too fast. But the other problem is having been an immensely effective opposition, having ousted a premier, having got the new premier to adopt many basic Wild Rose platform positions.
You're thinking of like the property rights issues and stuff like that.
Well, and getting rid of the plane, like all those things that Prentice did when he took over, all those things that he was trying to distance himself, using to distance himself from Redford.
Keeping open the Michener Center, changing the travel policy.
The license plates, all of these things that the opposition had been hammering on for months.
So the easy low-hanging fruit, he went and picked their orchard. But she has a much bigger problem because people in that Calgary oil sector who were bankrolling that party, that wasn't ever about ideology and it wasn't ever about personality. It was about hanging on to power. What that elite cadre of people want is continuity in government. And they saw Alison Redford as an ineffectual premier and Danielle Smith as a much more probable and plausible premier. Now they have Jim Prentice, and Jim Prentice looks, walks, sounds, acts like the kind of premier they want, and that money is going to start leaving Wild Rose and going back to the Tories because the shift in loyalty was never about ideology. It was always about, who they thought was going to be the best premier for them. And right now that looks like Jim Prentice, a guy who's got plenty of connections in the pipeline sector, plenty of connections in the energy industry, and who looks like he's running a tight ship. And here's the third problem. Danielle Smith has been trying valiantly to move her party to the center where she thought there were more votes. As Mariam can tell you from having been there at the AGM this weekend, there's a lot of pushback from some of her own grassroots who were not comfortable with where she wanted to take the party on a whole bunch of social issues, including gay rights.